You were asked to simplify a couple different expressions here and put this all into one video because I think these are fairly quick if we know the right steps. So in this case here for the square root of negative 16. First of all, if I take the square root of a negative number, I know that there's no way to actually get a negative number when we're multiplying something by itself. So I'm actually going to simplify this by breaking it up. I know the square root of negative 16 is like saying the square root of 16 times the square root of negative 1. Now I know the square root of 16 is equal to 4, and I use I to represent the square root of negative 1. So simplified here, we get 4i. This one here, if we're simplifying this, we're going to be adding, and this is two complex numbers. So really what I'm doing is just combining like terms. I'm doing 4 plus 5, which is 9, and negative I plus a negative 9i, which is negative 10i. So simplified, we have our new complex number, 9 minus 10i. Now we get a little bit more difficult here when we have 4 times the square root of negative 9. Now again, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with a with this square root of negative 9. I'm going to break it up into the square root of 9 and the square root of negative 1. So what this really is 3i. So if I were to rewrite this, it's like saying 4 times 3i minus 3. And 4 times 3i, just like if it were x, right? 4 times 3x is just 12x. Same idea here, it's just 12i. And then I bring down this minus 3. And in a perfect world, because when we talk about complex numbers, when we have a real part and an imaginary part, we put the imaginary part second. So in this case here, 12i minus 3 is technically correct, but the best way to look at it here is negative 3 plus a 12i. Now the last one here, I'm multiplying two complex numbers, so I'm going to use FOIL. You could totally use the box method or whatever you like the best, but I prefer FOIL. So 7 times 10 is 70. 7 times negative 2i is negative 14i. Then inside here, negative 4i times 10 is negative 40i. And then last here is negative 4i times a negative 2i, so I get plus 8i squared because negative 4 times negative 2 is 8, and I times I is I squared. Now we can combine like terms to give us 70 minus 54i plus 8i squared, but we're not actually done yet. And the reason for that is because I know we talked about before that I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So that means that if I'm taking I squared, remember if I square a square root, these two things cancel out, and I squared just gives me negative 1. So I can substitute negative 1 where I see I squared. What that does, it gives me 7 minus 54i plus 8 times negative 1. And 8 times negative 1 is just negative 8. And then I can combine like terms again. I'm going to move this up over here to give myself some more space. But what I get is 70 minus 54i plus a negative 8. And so I'm going to combine like terms, right? Which gives me 62 minus 54i. And there is my complex number.